Broderick here, back with another WoW TCG Classic deck tech. This time we're looking at Fel Trade Burn Warlock. You've probably never heard of it before, because it's new. It's by this guy right here, Nathan Colt. He got second in this year's Gen Con 2018 Classic Tournament. So let's get to the deck. We've got this hero. You can pause and read that. This is a hero, it's an aggro, an aggressive Warlock hero. In fact, you should probably go watch the Bogmara aggro deck tech if you haven't seen it already. A lot of similar things going on here. But we're not just an aggro deck. Our name is Fel Trade Burn, so why are we called that? Let's take a look at Fel Trade here. It's a 2-cost ability, it's not instant. Sacrifice any number of creatures you control, and then search your deck for a creature that costs that much or less and put it into play. So basically, we're going to aim to get 2 guys that cost 3, like something like these two, and then cheat a 6-drop into play. Or a guy that costs 1 and 2 and 3 and sack all that to get a 6-drop. Or 2 and a 3 and use that to get a 5-drop. So that's kind of how this deck's planning on working. Putting creatures into play, and then you can kind of cheat a big dude with Fel Trade. The other aspect of the name here shows burn. So we've got aggro creatures, we've got kind of a weird combo thing going on. We've also got some like interaction and discard and some draw. There's a lot of things going on in this deck, but the burn part is what really points us in the aggro direction. Let's take a look at Daedak. He's a 4-drop, 4/3. He's Protector. He also has Eternal, which is a keyword that lets you shuffle him back into your deck when he goes to the graveyard. That's a choice ability, so you can choose to leave him in your graveyard if you want. But the main reason he's here is because whenever he dies, he shoots the opposing hero for X damage equal to the number of resources you have, and you heal for a bunch too, same amount. And it's Shadow. So this guy will probably end up dealing like 5 or 6 damage every time he dies, and it'll heal you back up a little bit. And he can keep reshuffling him, and to the point where you can end up killing your opponent just by attacking, and eventually this guy dies off, and he ends up burning them for 8 or 9 or something crazy. So he himself is a burn spell, and a protector, and a creature, and a recurring threat. We've also got Nightfall. This card costs X. You just pay X, deal X shadow damage to a hero or an ally, and heal yourself. It's almost like this guy's trigger, except you have to pay mana for the whole thing. So it can take up your whole turn, but having 2 big fireball-style finishers, especially when it's like essentially just free off of another creature, means we have so much reach. So what can we do with this burn? Well, this isn't really easy to kill our opponent from 0, so we have all these aggro creatures to get them down. I think we want to get them down to as low as we can, but realistically, if you can get them down to like 12 health, then this guy will die with, probably have around 6 resources. This guy will end up dying. You can end up nightfalling them for another 6 and just kill them that way. So that's the burn plan, which kind of complements our aggro plan. And so to go over those plans again, we have aggro, play some aggro creatures, just try and kill them that way. We have the combo play with Fel Trade and cheating fatties into play and just trying to win quickly. Then we've got the burn plan, which is this guy and Nightfall. Those 2 abilities combined, or those 2 cards combined. We also have a lot of interaction in this deck. So we have Banish to the Nether. This is Oblivion Ring from Magic. So it's just nice, hits everything. It's nice to have. That's one of the reasons you play Warlock. Tuskarr Kite, we have only 3 of these, but this will basically be us drawing 2 cards a turn if we have to get to the point where we have to grind. And we're not really looking to grind everyone out. We're really just looking to grind until we can have board control or burn them out. So we only have 3 of those. We have 4 Lesson of the Nethers. This is just Thoughtseize, but you can also, it costs 3, so it's an expensive Thoughtseize. But you can also, we can do the same cheat that we have from the Bogmara deck, where you can just take a Warlock creature, tap it sideways, and cast it for free. We have 4 1-drops and 4 2-drop Warlocks, so there's not that many, but there's 8 ways to try and trigger this for free. So that's kind of our interaction. We also have Hesriana, of course, so she'll never go away. She's always going to be one of the best cards in the game. So between her and Banish and Nightfall, we've got a lot of ways to just remove targeted creatures in addition to us having a big board. Alright, let's go over these little creatures real quick again. So you guys know Broderick again. Yeah, he's aggressive. He's going to be, once he's in the graveyard, you can help your hero push damage or trade up a lot. Bloodsoul, he's just a Warlock. He does shadow damage. He's aggro. Hooray. Bazul, he's another one. Does damage when he comes into play, so he helps the burn plan. He's a Warlock. He does shadow, so he helps the shadow plan. Saw Hesriana, and she does shadow. That's relevant. And again, this is from the Bogmara deck, but since he costs 3, we're often going to be able to cheat him into play for free. That's going to help our Fel Trade plan, because this is reliant on getting creatures into play that have good costs, and this guy, we can make him cost 0, but his printed cost will still be 3, so he's going to help us into the cheating game plan, the combo game plan. And we went over Daedak. So what are we Fel trading for? Well, we've got 4 creatures here. Let's start with the smallest one, with the biggest name. Sourfang the Younger Kor'kon Warlord. Yep, this guy is a 5-drop 4/4. He's a Ferocity, which is haste from Magic. He can attack immediately, or charge from Hearthstone if you're one of those. When he enters play, you get to search your deck for a location named Kor'kon Vanguard, put it in your hand. That's this location. To sum this up, this location has tap, give someone +1 attack for the turn, which is Assault 1. But if you have Sourfang in your deck, and he's in play, then this thing gives somebody +3 attack. So this guy is in the deck because he's immediate pressure. He also draws you in land, so he's a 2-for-1. And sometimes you don't have enough creatures to get to 6 to sack with Fel Trade. You might just have enough to get to 5, like with a 3 and a 2. Or a 1-drop and this 4-drop. And he'll come out, you'll Fel Trade him into play, get some pressure, and if you haven't played your land that turn, well, your resource that turn, you can get a lot of pressure in with just this. And him in play swinging for 7 a turn. That's a lot for a card that costs 5. Next up, we've got Gnash. He is a 6-drop 4/6, and he just kind of wipes the board of small allies when he comes into play. He kills your own too, but it's great if you're up against Hunters or some kind of token deck. It's just got a bunch of dudes in play and you want to wipe the board. What a great way to do that for only 2 mana, or 6 if you have to hard cast him, but it's really there for the toolbox. Next up is Thrall. You guys know him by now. He's a 6-drop 6/6, Protector with Frost Resistance. He's a Lord, so all of your Horde creatures get +2/2, and also when he comes into play, you can put that's the Horde icon, so you can put a Horde ally from your graveyard into your hand. So you can choose to grab back most of these creatures except Hesriana. Can't grab her, can't grab this guy, and those are the ones you're going to be grabbing most of the time. Daedak, he's going to be reshuffled into your deck, but if he dies and you choose to leave him in the graveyard, then you can grab him back with Thrall later, so try to keep that play in mind. And then Mazu'kon. If you've never seen this card, and you're a WoW TCG player, I'm sure you've seen it, but if you're a Magic or a Hearthstone player, this card's ridiculous. A 6-drop 6/6 Ferocity who gets to swing immediately. When he dies, he puts a copy of himself into play as a token, and gets to swing again for another 6. It's not an exact copy, it's actually this one. So it doesn't have the ability to make another token, but you're getting a lot out of one card. And this thing is immediate. You can kill your opponent with it. Sometimes you can just kill their creatures. There's a lot of things you can do with this guy. So we're trying to cheat these into play. And I wanted to show you some fun combos. Let's say we already have a Mazu'kon in play. Like, maybe we played him on turn 6, smash for 6. On turn 7, let's say we untap, and maybe we have no other creatures in play, just a single Mazu'kon. So we can swing in for 6, hit our opponents for 6 damage, cast our Fel Trade here, sack the Mazu'kon, so he goes to the graveyard, he dies, get a Thrall, put Thrall into play, and then take the Mazu'kon in our graveyard, put this back in our hand, so we can cast it later. But then, when Mazu'kon died from our Fel Trade sacrifice, we get his token. His token still has the Horde symbol. If you look at the top right, he is technically Horde. So Thrall will pump him by 2. So we swang for 8 or 6 earlier, now we're going to swing for 8. So we're going to deal 14 damage this turn from 2 cards. Just Mazu'kon plus Fel Trade with a Thrall still in the deck. Quite a powerful combo, especially if you have another 4 mana left. Maybe you just Nightfall them for 4. I mean, that's 14 plus 4, 18 damage. Yeah, that's turn 6, but that's a lot of damage. Like, if you were playing kind of a slower, grindier game, and then you just burn them for that much, ouch time. And then we went over our burn plan with Nightfall and Daedak. I just wanted to highlight those 2 again, because you can have your games go long, and even just use Nightfall as removal if you need, and eventually you'll get there with your burn if you've paced the game right. I wanted to go over the resources. Well, we've got... I changed 1 or 2 cards from Nathan's original deck, so just bear with me, because that way you can make the edits easily on TTS if you'd like. So I threw 1 of these in here. If the opposing hero was dealt damage this turn by an ally in your party, you can pay 1, draw a card. I think this will fit in nicely, because a lot of our cards cost 2 or 3, and we might be able to slot this in turns where otherwise we're only doing 1 thing a turn. Dark Horizon, we have the full 4 right now, because there's so much shadow in this deck. This quest is usually great. Just pay 3, draw 2, because we do shadow damage almost every turn. So it's super efficient. That's hard to beat. 2 of these, pay 4, put a demon from your graveyard into play. That's for this guy right here. He deals damage when he comes into play, and for Hesriana. She's just amazing at killing creatures, so she's ideally the one we're going to be using. But if you just need some reach or damage, you can just throw this guy into play too. So there's enough targets to make this thing worthwhile. And no, 4 seems expensive, but if you think of it like this, pay 2 to draw a card, and then you actually have to cast that creature too. That usually would cost more, like 5 mana to pay 2 to draw and then to cast again. This also is uncounterable, since you can just put it into play, and there's no way for them to interact with this quest triggering because you didn't cast the ally, just put it into play. So that's a nice little bonus. 1 Draenei's Junk. It's good at finding cards that cost 1, 2, or 3. Cannot find Nightfall because it costs X. X is different. But it'll find most of our little aggressive creatures here, and it finds Fel Trade, finds most of our universal removal and answers and all that. So it's a nice versatile card. Even if it can't get us the answer that we're looking for, it'll almost always get us something. I have it with a 1/1 split here, Signed in Blood. Just pay 1, turn their resource down. We've also got Taretha's Diversion. Pay 2, turn their resource down. If it was a location, you draw a card. So it's a little more expensive with the upside that you might draw another card, which is great. I actually think this card's a little bit better, but you never know. Sometimes the speed is all that matters, and that 1 mana can really hurt. And you really have to have these in this deck because it's all shadow damage when it comes down to it. It's just, well, it's mostly shadow damage. And there's a Blood Elf City, Silvermoon City, that if they name Shadow, you just can't win anymore. So you have to have some way to deal with that. And we don't have any way to, we haven't included any way to tutor for a card to deal with that. But that seems pretty niche. It seems like whatever card we were going to tutor for is like, what, Scumbago? Like, he's 1. Like, he's a 1-drop 1/1. Like, if we're paying 2 and sacrificing creatures to put a 1/1 into play, it's going to be hard to win that game. Go to the sideboard. Let's start with this. I went down to 3 just to try it. Talisman of the Horde. You just tap it and destroy all abilities and equipment that have the highest cost. So if there's only one thing in play with 4, you get that. But if there's a bunch in play with 3, like the Talisman itself and Tuskarr Kites and this and that, it's just a nice universal way to kill equipment and abilities. Because our deck has no equipment, and the only ongoing ability is Tuskarr Kite and Banish to the Nether. So we got to make sure that we don't accidentally use our talismans here to knock off a Banish that was on an opponent's thing. It'll bring it back into play. But what a funny thing you can do with Banish, on purpose, you can choose to banish, let's say, your own creature. I don't know, like this guy if you wanted to. And then if you use Talisman of the Horde, you'll crack off your own Banish so this guy comes back into play again. I mean, that is a weird set of plays I don't see coming up very often, but it's there. Anyway, so ability and equipment destruction. This is Vuz'din. You know him by now. He silences ongoing abilities while he's in play. So he's just there for all the decks to have ongoing abilities. There's a lot of them. That's what sideboards are for. So between him and the Talisman, that's 5 to deal with abilities. I have 1 Monk and Blackfist. He's a 2/4, and he'll pop off an opponent's equipment, if they're an equipment deck. I chose to play him over the 4th Talisman because I liked having the ability to Fel Trade for him, an on-demand answer that can destroy the equipment. It can be really important in some matchups. We have 2 of this guy, Rockin'. I don't know how you say it. I'm just going to pronounce him like rockin', like we're rocking out, because look at that pose. That's nuts. Anyways, when he enters play, you name a card, and your opponent's card like that loses and can't have power. So he basically silences a card that's in play, or a card that your opponent might play that can ruin your game plan. Now this is great. We have 2 of those, and this is basically the answer Nathan originally included that you can Fel Trade for and answer anything. But I wanted a way to at least finally destroy the equipment, because I feel like this guy's pretty vulnerable, especially against the warrior deck where you really need to kill their equipment. He has 4 health and they have heroic throw, which does 4 damage, so I feel like he's a pretty easy kill versus the warrior deck, whereas Monk and Blackfist will always get the job done. So he's a nice, cool, universal answer, in addition to all of our Banish to the Nethers and our Hesrianas to kill allies and all this other ability and equipment destruction. We have a lot to bring in versus some decks. And then 2 of this card, Scourge of Lordaeron. Pay 1, and just remove someone's graveyard from the game. This is devastating for the graveyard decks. We have 2 of these. We have no way to tutor for them, and we didn't bother playing any way to use a creature to mess up opponents' graveyard strategies. We're just going to go with this little quest here. It's hard for them to interact with. They really can't do much unless they counter it first, or if they flip your own quest over. Hey, if you draw it, it's going to be great. It's easy, it's cheap, and it'll really help you win those games versus the graveyard decks. You can either use it early to try and give your aggro guys the advantage, or just wait until late until they're trying to pull off some value combo or even a game-winning combo. And it's really hard for them to play around. With 1 mana, there's no room for them to slow down and not deal with it. Like, you can always have 1 mana up. It's pretty easy to set up your game plan in that way. Anyways, this is the deck. I think it seems really fun. I like to get in there and get some games with it. If you guys want to play, remember, we are on the WoW TCG Discord. We'll see you next time.